Today we're going to be making a 3 kilogram spool holder. Uh, that'll look something like this by the time we're done with it. The spool is actually going to sit on these two rollers, and the rollers are going to spin around on bearings to help with the movement, roll around its axis. We're going to be using two drawings for this. The first one is a bearing drawing with inside outside diameter plus thickness, and then we have our spool drawing as well. We'll probably use a outside diameter for this and the outside diameter right here. First thing that we're going to do is start a new part. We're going to set up our first sketch, click on the front, and we're going to start off with the roller. So let's do the outline of a roller right here. We're going to have some angled bumpers on the side. And we'll have those at about 45-degree angle. Oh, don't know where I got that. And a 45-degree angle here as well. And we're going to want to use the space in between. We're going to want to use the 3 kilogram spool drawing to see the outside diameter of our spool. That's going to be 4.575. We don't really want that exactly 4.575, so let's just go with a round number of 5.5. And that'll give us about a half an inch on each side of the spool. Then we're going to want to set up the thickness of our roller. Since this is going to be a revolve, we're actually going to only input the half of the distance that we actually want. So we want a 1 inch roller. We're going to divide that by 2. And then our bumper right here, we probably don't want it 2 inches. So let's go with 0.75 instead for that. And we're going to want this the same as the other side. So let's constrain this point to be horizontal, or sorry, vertical with the other point. We'll use the vertical constraint for that. So click on that point and that point for that. And it's going to think about that. There we go. And it looks like everything's constrained, but we still have some blue lines here. So let's see if we can't fix this line in one spot. So then we can constrain it. And I'm just going to put a midpoint on the line, and you can see that by the constraint that it adds with that midpoint icon. Then we're going to go with a coincident, click on the point, and then click on the origin right here, if it'll let me. There we go. And it looks like that was it. Our whole sketch is constrained now. So let's press the check mark. We're going to click on revolve. And then we're going to click on the face of our sketch. And then we need a revolve axis. We're going to click on this line of our sketch right here to make it revolve around. Now we're going to want to set in some bearings on either side of this roller. So let's start a sketch for our bearing. And all we're going to do is make a circle, and we're going to want to use 2 dimensions from our bearing drawing. We're going to need to know a thickness, the 0.275, and the outside diameter, the 0.865 for this. So let's start a circle. We're going to dimension that, the 0.865, and we're going to want to add a little bit of tolerance in there. So we don't want too much though, so the bearing just kind of spins around. So let's do 0.01 for that. We're going to press OK, and then we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to use our thickness that we just saw on the bearing. We're going to want to remove, and that thickness was 0.275. So let's type in 0.275, and then let's add 0.01 again for the tolerance. Press OK. And then for that extrude right there, let's just mirror it to the other side. So make this easy, right? So we're going to use the mirror function, the entity to mirror. We're actually not want to do a part. We're going to want to do a feature. The feature to mirror is this extrude, and then the mirror plane is going to be our top plane. And that's right in the midpoint, like we put on the sketch. So it should make another hole on the other side, just like that. Okay, so we're also going to need a pin that goes through the middle right here. So let's start another sketch, and that can be on the end of the roller again. Let's view normal to sketch plane so we can line up the origin with the middle, make sure our hole is in the center. We're going to click on the origin, and we're going to click out here. It doesn't really matter which size you put in because we're going to dimension it. Let's put a, let's go to the bearing drawing. We need this dimension right here, the 0.315. Let's dimension 0.315, and then let's do the 0.01 again as a tolerance. Let's press OK. And then we're going to extrude, do a remove, and then let's see if up to next gets rid of everything. No, it doesn't. Let's do up to face, and we'll click on this face. So it does a hole all the way through the part. You can see that right there. All right. So since this is for a spool holder, we're probably going to want to 3D print this. And this is going to print up like this, right? So right here for our bearing is going to need support if we don't add a few features into this. So let's start a sketch in this hole right here. We're going to right click, view normal to sketch plane, and we're just going to add some lines to make this a little bit more 3D printable. We're going to click on this circle and this circle, and then we're also going to click on this circle and this circle. And we want these to be tangent with the hole right here, but also horizontal, or sorry, vertical as well. So we'll click on that and make it tangent with the circle. Huh. Let's click out of this. Tangent, click on the circle, click on the line. There we go. And then we want vertical on this line right there. And you can see those two turn black, so they're fully constrained. Let's press OK. And then we're going to extrude right here and right here. And we only want to extrude this one layer line that you're going to print this on. So we're going to remove, that's going to be 0.2 millimeters. And that's all we want to extrude out of that. And then we're going to do that again, except we're going to go across the other way. And this will kind of set up a little bit of support for this hole without having support on it. So let's do a sketch right there. We're going to go from this line to this line. And let's right click and view normal to sketch plane. Looks like that isn't horizontal, so we'll add horizontal to that. Press OK. And then we're going to extrude. Extrude both of those. It's going to be a remove. It's going to be 0.2 millimeters again. Press OK. We're going to do that for the bottom of this circle too. Okay, so that is going to go tangent with this circle. All right, we got the black line. and then we're going to extrude by 0.2 millimeters. Okay, and that's our roller. We did this to make it 3D printable, and since this is going to be towards the build plate, we don't have to do it on the other side. Next, we'll move on to the base. We're going to first start by opening up a new part. We're going to start our first sketch and use the top plane as our sketch plane. We're going to use 2 center point rectangles. And here is where we'll use the length of our roller right here. So we can look at this, and in the bottom corner we have 6 inches. So our top dimension will make 6 inches right here. And this will make about 4.75. Kind of figured that out through some trial and error. That dimension is going to be how far apart your rollers are going to be. This will be 6 plus 0.5. 0.5 is the amount of material we have on each side for our base, plus 0.0625 for the space in between, the tolerance in between the rollers and the base. And over here we're going to do the same thing, 0.75 plus 0.5, and we don't need that extra tolerance on this side, so we'll just leave that be. Press OK. And we're going to do 2 extrudes from the sketch, so we're going to click on both to create a solid base. We're going to change the direction so it goes the other direction. That distance is going to be 1/8 of an inch. Press OK. And then we're going to use the sketch again, and we're only going to use the outside rectangle. Extrude, and that's going to be 1.5 inches. Now we need the holes for our pin to go through our base and roller. So we're going to make a sketch over here, hide sketch number 1. We're going to press sketch, right click, view normal to sketch plane, and it looks like it tilted it for us for some reason. We're just going to need 2 holes. They're going to be the same size, so let's constrain them equally. And they're going to be at the same height, so let's constrain them vertically, or sorry, horizontally as well. We're going to dimension these 3/8 away from the wall, 0.375. We're going to do the same thing over here, and that's how high they're going to be as well. We'll need to dimension the circle itself, and we can use the bearing drawing to figure that out. That's going to be this inside diameter of the bearing, the 0.315. So we'll go back to our part, 0.315, and add 0.01 for a tolerance. Let's press OK, click on the sketch, and click extrude. This is going to be a remove, and we just wanted to remove all the way to the other side. So let's click on up to face instead, and click on this face to go through all the way. Let's press OK. Then we don't need these walls right here. Those are probably going to get in the way of the spool. So let's make a sketch right here. Let's right click and view normal, and we're going to want a corner to corner rectangle for this one. Each corner is going to be coincident with the outside, and then all we have to do is set up a few more coincidents. So that is coincident with that, this is coincident with that line. Press OK. And then we're going to extrude this. That's going to be a remove all the way down to that face on the base. Now we're getting pretty close to what we want. But we have a lot of extra material in between the holes. So let's start a sketch to get rid of that now. We're going to do a corner rectangle. Click on the top right there. This is going to be an inch, no, 0.5 of an inch. And then this is going to be, let's go with 7/8 of an inch on each side. Let's press OK, and we're going to remove that all the way to the other side here as well. Click on the other face. We're going to want to make this a remove. Press OK. Now we have most of our base going right here, and we should probably round off some edges to get it to look a little bit better. So let's start with some fillets. Touch on all these corners. And instead of a 1/16 of an inch, let's go with 3/8 of an inch. That looks pretty good. We should probably add some fillets onto these corners as well. Kind of break up some of the force. Let's make that 0.5 instead. Can we get away with an inch? Oh, that looks much better. Let's do an inch. Then we have a lot of extra material that we'll need to make for this, so let's get rid of some of that. So let's add a sketch right here. And let's do a center point rectangle in the middle. Then we can just dimension from the edge right here. We'll go with 0.5, half an inch. That looks pretty good. Press OK. Remove that. And then we have just one more fillet that we have to do right here. Break up a little bit more of the forces in here. And let's do 0.5 instead. Make it a little bit better. And that looks pretty good. That's it for our base. Next we're going to move on to the pin that goes through the roller and the base. We're going to do that by opening up a new part. We're going to create a new sketch, click on the front plane. We're going to start with the center point circle. And with this center point circle, we're going to be using the bearing drawing again. And we're going to use this inside diameter. So that's 0.315. 315. And instead of adding, we're actually going to subtract because it's going to go on the inside of the bearing. So let's do 0.01 for that. That's all we need there. Now we're going to extrude, and this is going to have to go through our entire base. So we need to figure out the dimension of the outside of our base right here. And it looks like that's going to be 6.5 with a 1/16 of an inch. So 625, 625. Then we need to add 0.25 for our slots. And then let's add another 0.125 just to make it easy for our fingers to get the pins in. We can make it longer, but we can't make it shorter. So let's press OK for that. And let's start on the slots. That'll go on the end of our pin. Get a few corner rectangles. And these rectangles will need to be centered. So let's use a construction line to do that. Put that on the midpoint of both rectangles. Take that line, make it horizontal, line them up, and we can also click on both of those to make them horizontal. That'll line those up as well. Let's make this 0.0625 there. We need to finish making these even, so let's add a point in the middle right here and use a vertical constraint. Click on that point, click on this point. There we go. So these are 0.0625 now. Ooh. I did not want to add that constraint. I want to add a dimension. Let's add 0.25 to that. Let's make both of these equal. I don't think that was what we were looking for. Let's dimension in between here now. Make this 1/8 of an inch. And this is going to be a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge. Looks like everything's constrained. So we're going to extrude that sketch. This is going to be a remove, but we want it to go through the entire piece. So let's do symmetric. So it goes to both sides of the sketch rather than just one. Let's press OK. That's about what we want right there, but we want it on the other side as well. So let's do a mirror of that. We're going to need a midpoint plane to mirror them. We can do the midpoint right here. And you can see our plane popped up right in the middle. Press OK. Let's start with the mirror. Needs to be changed over to a feature mirror instead of a part. The feature that we want is this extrude 2. See right there? And the mirror plane is going to be the plane that we just created. There we go. Now we're not going to want to print this upwards with these slots. Can't put support in there. So we want to print this on its side horizontally now, so it touches the build plate. So let's cut off the bottom of the circle right here. Hopefully it lets us do this. There we go. That's horizontal. And then if we just dimension this, let's go with 0.1 inch. That should be enough. Now we can click on this bottom part, extrude, and let's do a remove. And we're going to want to remove the entire thing. So let's do a up to face, and click on the opposite face. Let's press OK. And now we can set that up the build plate, no problem. It'll print out just fine. Hide that plane. And now we're going to make the slot that goes into the pin right here. And we're going to make that right next to it, not open up a new part. So let's start another sketch. we'll just make this part off to the side of the other one. Start with 2 circles. The dimension in between these circles is going to be 0.125, and then this inside diameter is going to be based off of our bearing drawing. So let's do the 0.315. Let's minus 0.01 off of that. And then we need a rectangle as our slot to go in between these. And we'll add a point on here to keep it centered. That'll be vertical with the origin of the circle. Let's dimension this as 0.125, because that's the amount of space we have. Just to make sure everything's constrained, let's fix that center point. There we go. The only thing that we're worried about is how long this is. Let's just put 0.5 on it to constrain everything. Let's press OK. Extrude. We're going to extrude all of this. And our little slot length or width was 0.0625, so let's do that and then subtract off 0.01 to give us our tolerance, and that should give us all the parts to our spool holder. If you like the video, then please give us a like. If you would like to see more videos like this, then please subscribe. Thank you.